Perfect. I can see some thumbs up, so I guess everyone can hear us and see us okay. 15 people. We'll give it 2 more minutes. We had about 45 people register, so we're just waiting for a few people to join, and then we can start. 15. Okay, people are slowly joining in, so we'll give it 1 more minute and we'll give it a start. Anja, we've got about 16 people now. Are you happy for me to start?
Yes. Let's get started.
So we start. Yeah. So good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. My name is Raquel Micomel-Guiso. I recently joined the UK Research Office in Brussels, and together with me, I have Anja Bernard, who is the Policy and Stakeholder Manager and Marie Curie in NCP, so National Contact Point. And without further ado, over to Anja, who will be delivering our presentation. There will be a Q&A chat where you can put the questions so you can ask your questions right at the end. The Q&A chat will be monitored. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Raquel, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. As to start, we're going to give you a tour through the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action Staff Exchanges today. Please type in your questions in the Q&A. We will have a look during and answer as we can, and we will have a dedicated session afterwards, after the presentation, where we endeavor to answer as many as possible. Some we might do via email later if they're a bit more complex. The slides will be made available, the same as the readout from the questions, and also, if the technology works for us, the recording. So, to get started, first important thing is our email address, marie-curie-uk@ukro.ac.uk. Please direct all your queries about Marie Curie actions to this address. So first I would like to introduce UKRO. So we support UK-based organizations involved in EU research innovation, and our mission is to maximize UK participation in Horizon Europe. We have a UKRO portal which has dedicated news articles, events, and fact sheets to support the participation, and we also have alerts to upcoming opportunities and call dates. We are the national contact points for the European Research Council, MSCA, widening participation cost in the new European Bauhaus, and we are part of UKRO's international team. Now, UK participation in Horizon Europe. Basically, we are back since the 1st of January 2024. So this means the UK entities can participate in or coordinate, very important, we can coordinate and receive funding from Horizon Europe, with the exceptions of the EIC Accelerator Investment Fund. And since earlier this year, we are even able to take part in more opportunities, and you will be able to follow that link. And the UKRO website also has lots of information on upcoming opportunities, etc. Right, so I will give you a short introduction to the MSCA. So it sets out to support researcher training and career development, create impact on researchers, institutions and systems, and to contribute to EU priorities such as the European Green Deal, Climate Action Target, the European Research Area, ERA, and the European Education Area. It does this through encouraging people to become researchers and innovators in the first place, then equipping the researchers with necessary skills and international experience. Mobility is really the key here. It's the international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary mobility. It supports long-term employability. It's for developing attractive career opportunities and employment conditions, fostering and developing an innovation and entrepreneurial mindset. Strong collaboration with the non-academic sector is absolutely built in here. It fosters an R&I environment based on excellence in research, and that is not only for researchers, but also for organizations. Organizations need to provide an environment that is excellent for research. And overall, it promotes the EU's global attractiveness for talent. Now, there are a number of MSc actions, and you will have heard of all of them probably, but today we're going to focus on the staff exchanges, which promote innovative, international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary collaboration in research and innovation. And just as a note we do give webinars for the other programs as well, so please keep an eye out on our events page where you can find them listed, or where you can see where the videos have gone in the recordings, etc. Right, so the MSCA Staff Exchanges. The basics. It is all about building new or developing existing networks and collaborations for the long term. We're not talking about a quick visit, we're talking years to come. It's meant to increase global collaboration and also collaboration between sectors, including SMEs. So very important. It's meant to enhance the knowledge transfer between the participants and to develop research and transferable skills. And as I said earlier, support the long-term employability. It absolutely encourages the mobility, intersectoral mobility, international mobility, and interdisciplinary mobility. And you will hear this throughout this webinar again and again. And obviously of sharing knowledge and ideas for the advancement of science and the development of innovation. And this is all implemented through a collaborative R&I project, which is all about mobility. Now, who is eligible to take part? So basically all countries and nationalities can participate. All institutions fulfilling the requirements of Horizon Europe rules for participation can take part, so more or less any legal entity. The consortium of the project must be composed of at least 3 legal entities, which are located in 3 different countries, and at least 2 of these countries must be in a member state, an EU member state, or an associated country, such as the UK. The maximum size and duration of the project is 360 person month, and it can run over 4 years. The secondment of staff can be between 1 and 12 months. Now, the consortium must be, as I said, any legal entity established in the academic or non-academic sector. 3 different legal entities and established in 3 different countries, 2 of which must be based in different EU member states, associated countries. If all these organizations are from the same sector, you must include at least one country from a third country. So please check very, very early on which sectors are included in your consortium. Now, how is it divided? We have the academic sector, which are public or private higher education establishments awarding academic degrees, public or private non-profit research organizations, and international European research organizations. The non-academic sector is defined as any socioeconomic actor not included in the academic sector and fulfilling the requirements for the Horizon Europe rules for participation. Now, how you determine what is academic and non-academic, that's actually determined by the European Commission in the validation process. When you apply on the funding portal, you will have to put your details in there of your organization, and I will give you an example later. There is where it says academic or non-academic, basically. And as I said, it's very important to check with the organizations in advance to understand which sector they are in. Some are very clear-cut. A university will always be academic. An SME is obviously non-academic, but there are some gray areas where it could lead to confusion. In terms of the composition, there is no typical consortium size. It absolutely depends on your needs, on your project, on what you are planning. The recommendation in general is between 6 and 10 organizations, but in general, projects range between 3 and 20 partners. As I said, it's all limited to 4 years and 360 person months. So you will have to look how you juggle that between the partners. There are 2 types of participants. There are the beneficiaries, which are generally from member states and associated countries, and they sign the grant agreement. And there are associated partners, usually from third countries. They do not sign the grant agreement. The beneficiary can send and host staff, provides training opportunities, and directly receives funding. Associated partners can host secondments and provide training opportunities. Now, in certain circumstances, when they're eligible for funding, if they're from a low and middle income country, they might also be able to send staff on secondments and receive funding. There is no limit on the associated partners, but the number of them must be reasonable and in line with your project. You can't just add project partners because you like them. There must be a reason for this, and you must justify why they are in the project. So eligibility for the secondee. So they will continue to be under direction and instructions from the sending organization for the duration of the secondment. So if you send somebody from the University of Bristol to the University of Erlangen in Germany, the University of Bristol will still be responsible and instructing them. They need to be actively engaged in or linked to the RNI activities at the sending institution for at least 1 month prior to the first secondment, or pro rata for part-time. So they must be employed by you beforehand. Obviously, they must have the appropriate experience to undertake the activities. They must work full-time on secondment, even if they work part-time when they're with you at the sending organization. As soon as they go on secondment, they need to do full-time. Now, a secondment can be split in several stages. You don't have to do full-time immediately. And seconded staff members do not have to be researchers. So you could, for example, also think about technical staff. If there is value in sending them, you are allowed to send them as well. Then, as I said, there are the different types of mobility, and this is where it comes to if your secondment is actually eligible to receive funding or not. So if you send somebody from a member state or associated country institution to a third country institution, this can be in any sector, because then you've got the international ticked. If you send somebody from an academic institution, it must be a non-academic institution in a member state or academic. Then you have the intersectoral ticked. And vice versa, if you're non-academic, you send them to academic. If you're in a third country and you're eligible for funding, you may send somebody to a member state or associated country in any sector. If you are in a member state or associated country and you send and receive somebody in the same sector, so academic to academic, in a member state and or associated country, it must be interdisciplinary and can only be up to a third of the total amount of secondments. So that's the most complicated part of this one. If you're sending academic to academic, please make sure it's interdisciplinary. And I will get to this, what interdisciplinary means. Right, now the project. It should go beyond previous work and generate or strengthen long-term collaborations. I mentioned this before, and I cannot highlight this enough. You also need to have clear research and innovation objectives and deliverables. Really think, do I have clear scientific and training goals? The secondment should be essential. Don't get caught out by sending somebody because it's a nice to have. No, it has to be essential. They have to be able to do something or to do something for your project that they wouldn't be able to do at home. Exploit the complementary competencies of the participating organizations. If you're great at growing cells and your partner is great at microscopy, make use of that. Send them to do the microscopy there. Create synergies between the partners, and then support networking activities and the organization of workshops and conferences. Get together every year. Do a results event, a workshop. Really bring the partners together, and not just the senior academics. Bring the early career researchers together as well, for example. And then by this, you're facilitating the sharing of knowledge and testing the innovative approaches for specific R&I topics. And then obviously offer new skills acquisition and career development perspective. What does it give to the individual if they're going on secondment? It might be they're learning a new technique. It might be they're getting transferable skills. They're improving language skills, maybe. There is anything. You really need to think about what can you offer to anyone coming to you, and what is your host offering where you're sending them. And most importantly, the scheme is open to all areas and all topics. So there's no strategic direction here. It's really open, bottom up. As I said, it is implemented through the intersectoral, international, and interdisciplinary secondments, and the partners or the consortia contribute directly by sending or hosting eligible staff. The secondments must always take place between legal entities independent from each other. Now, there are certain organizations out there that have various locations across the world, but there's still one legal entity, for example, established in the UK. That is not possible. You have to send them somewhere that's not associated with you. And as I said, again, the secondments must be essential. So And it all leads to people getting international exposure, which is very important, increase R&I capacity, attract top researchers, increase employability and career prospects, and enhance existing and build new collaborative networks. So as I said, secondments must be intersectoral, interdisciplinary for up to a third of the person month. Now, how you determine interdisciplinarity, you will have to look at the MSCA keywords. So I'll get to that in a couple of slides when I show you how to submit. You will need to decide in which scientific area your proposal sits. And so therefore you have to have a look at the keywords as well. And if you want to send somebody that's using the same keywords, then you have to rethink your approach and find somebody that's interdisciplinary. As I said, the person must be already at your organization for at least a month prior to be sent on secondment, must be experienced to actually undertake the activities, must work full-time, and they don't need to be researchers. All this can be found in the guide for applicants, and this is where you can also find this table. Please sit down, have a look at it. It always go from the sending organization and see what is allowed, as I said previously. So academic to academic is allowed for a third, academic to non-academic is absolutely okay. Same goes for third country and so on. So this table looks a bit daunting, but once you sit down, have a look at it, it's not that bad. Right, as I said, you can split secondments between several or one beneficiaries and associated partners. You must still respect the minimum and maximum duration rule, so that's between 1 and 12 months. All the secondments, no matter which way you split them, must still be within the duration of the action, so that's 4 years. And at least 30 days must be completed so that you can actually get funding for it. Afterwards, if you're doing 40 days, then you get it pro rata after the 30. Now, just to go back to third countries. So as I said, third countries can host secondees. They can always host secondments. They can send staff on secondments if they are from low and middle income countries. There is a list published by the European Commission, and we are more than happy to help you find that list if you're not already aware of it. So just send us a quick email. They also provide training and networking opportunities. They contribute to advisory committees and/or project boards. They participate in network-wide activities. They participate as a key stakeholder and/or end user, and they provide background expertise and other resources. Basically, they are involved in the project as a key partner. They're not just a nice accessory, they are fully integrated into the project. So, money makes the work go round. So what's included budget-wise? As I said, the maximum funding is for 360 person month. It is done like other MSCA schemes via unit costs, and there is no country coefficient. The funding is not to replace salaries of seconded staff, so you will have to continue to pay the salary of your secondments. The researchers must receive their allowance that's dedicated to them in full. Other units can be used flexibly. There is no detailed financial reporting due to it being unit costs. And as I said, the third countries from low middle incomes are automatically eligible for EC funding. And one thing to keep in mind, please make sure that everyone interprets and understands the rules the same way. Especially around financial agreements, please discuss them at a very, very early stage, because that is one thing we see very often. After you've been successful, that's when the negotiation starts and financial issues are coming to light. So in numbers, so as I said, you must continue to pay your salary staff during their secondment, and all the costs actually depend on the secondments. No secondments means no money. The sending organization will receive the funding, and there is a total of 5,010 euros. Please be aware, you will be paid in euros. That needs to be taken into account. You have the staff member unit costs, which contributes to travel, accommodation, and subsistence costs related to the secondment. That must be fully used to the benefit of the seconded staff member, and it's paid according to internal policies. So the amount can either be managed by the institution or paid directly, but all in accordance with national rules. Then you have a special needs allowance if applicable. That depends on the case, and you can always request it. Then you have the research, training, and networking for 1,300 euros. That contributes to the costs for the training, transfer of knowledge, and networking activities, as well as research expenses. And then you have the management and indirect costs of 1,000 euros, which contributes to the beneficiary's cost in relation with the action, project management, etc. And this can often be top sliced by the coordinator to cover network-wide activities. So how does it work in practice? So the beneficiaries declare all the costs in individual financial statements for their outgoing secondment of their own staff and incoming secondments from a third country partner that is eligible for funding. And beneficiaries must complete a mobility declaration for the outgoing secondment staff and also for the incoming. As I said, if it's agreed by the consortium, the institutional costs can be distributed, and that does not have to be reported in the financial statements. So if you are hosting a staff from a third country that is eligible for funding, you are responsible for declaring their costs. So that is very important. And again, please, if you make any arrangements with partners on how to distribute funding, or if you have a common pot for network activities, please discuss this as early as possible. Right, now you've got that far. So how do you actually submit? First, register and create an account on the EU funding and tender portal. If you're not familiar with it, this will give you the link. Familiarize yourself with all the available guidance documents. There are plenty of them, and there's a link in the end which will guide you to all of them. Please have a read through them. We are more than happy to answer any questions. Then you go and assemble your consortium and discuss the proposal writing and submission process. Start the application on the system, develop your application and proposal, and then you submit early and often. So you can submit and then resubmit until the actual deadline. Whatever is in the system submitted by the deadline, that will be taken and evaluated. But you can submit 10 times, 20 times beforehand, doesn't matter, as long as you don't forget to submit. Right, so if you haven't seen the funding and tender portal, this is how it looks. So in the top right corner, where it says sign in, you can also register. And on the left-hand side, you have a tab called Conditions and Documents. This is where you find all the information for step 2. So I've included all the links so you can have those as well. Then you've done step 2, you've done step 3, you start your application. So there are 2 parts. Part A is something that you complete online. So this is this side here, where you have to put all the admin details, who you are, etc. And please talk to your research office because they can provide you with all the support on the organization details. Then you will need to choose your panel under which you want to be evaluated. There are 8 panels. Please choose your panel by fitting to the keywords. These are the keywords I mentioned earlier. And do not go by success rates. This is not a good approach. Success rates change every year, and you might not be able to get the evaluation that you wanted. So really look at the keywords and which ones are fitting to you. Part B of the application, you prepare offline and submit as a PDF. You can download the Part B template on the left-hand side, and the left-hand side also gives you the support that is available with the actual admin part of the application. Now then, Part A administrative form, they are filled in online, they're often pre-populated. A lot of times inform guidance is available, so you will find a little question mark, for example. You click on it and it pops up with a little window telling you what you should do. You fill in the participants and contacts. You fill in the budget, which is based on person months requested. It's calculating itself, basically. You will need a gender equality plan. There's an ethics and security questionnaire. And information on the publications, etc., is not mandatory in Part A, but you will need it in Part B. You can see here, if it says add partner, do add all the partners independent on if they get funding or not. You need to add them all here, and via the edit forms button, you can access the Part A forms. Now, participants, and I said this is where you can check what sector there are. So if you have your list of participating organizations, you can click on show participants details, and it then gives you the specific legal statuses. And it says, is it a secondary or higher education establishment? Yes. Research organization? Yes. And SME? No. So in this case, this is an academic partner. And this is where you actually check the sector of each partner and if you can use them for the intersectoral mobility criteria. Then we get to the budget. So all participant organizations are encoded as the partner, except the coordinator, which is listed as coordinator. You just need to fill in the number of seconded researchers and the number of person months, and then it automatically populates the costs. As I said, there's a maximum of 360. And if you have associated partners that cannot get any funding, you just put 0 in there. You might get a yellow warning, but that's nothing. That's normal. Yellow warnings are fine. And this is how you fill this out. Then the ethics and security questions, they do not affect your eligibility. There is a guidance available on how to fill them out. If you click yes, they might require a brief statement and or an upload of documents. And the UK applicants need to tick yes to non-EU activity, as we are not part of the EU. Now, coming to Part B. Part B is, again, in 2 parts. B1 is the proposal. And the sections correspond to the evaluation criteria of excellence, impact, and implementation. And there's a maximum of 32 pages. Part B2 contains information on participating organizations and interrelationship declarations. And as I said, you can download it from the left side of the call page. There will be instructions on how to fill out Part B. As I said, maximum 32 pages and access will be cut off. Please follow the guidance. Do not alter or move or delete tags. And one thing is, do not attempt to outsmart the formatting rules. They have been put in there for a reason. And you might actually put your whole proposal at risk if you try to go around them and not adhere to them. So please do not do this. And then, finally, the checklist for your associated partners. You have included them as partner in Part A, even if they do not request any funding. They are included in the budget table. If they are eligible for funding, you have encoded them with 0. If they're not eligible or not requesting funding, there is an opportunity to request exceptional funding. And if you do, please make sure you have filled in Part B, Section 3.2 for this. Ensure that your associated partners are fully integrated throughout all of Part B1 and that they're included in Table 6 of Part B1. And also to note that there are no more needs for letters of commitment. I think this is now the second year in a row where this is, so you don't need those letters anymore. And then it comes to submission. So as I said, Part B1 is the proposal, Part B2 is the general information. If you're back to the call page, you upload them in the relevant in the lines. You must upload them as PDFs. And then you can submit them and amend them as often as you would like up to the call deadline. Right. You've submitted everything and then it goes into the evaluation. So there is an automatic pre-allocation of 3 evaluators by the research executive agency that's based on the MSCA keywords. Evaluators can reject if it's outside their expertise or if they have a conflict. You will be scored between 5, which is excellent, or 0 fails. And the scores and comments you receive are based on the consensus of the evaluator. You won't see individual comments. If there are any further questions, additional evaluators can be involved. So there will be an individual evaluation, then there will be a consensus group and a panel ranked list, and then the finalization. And the rapporteur is an experienced evaluator that usually makes sure everything is in order, and the summary evaluation reports are really reflecting the summary of the comments, not just individual opinions. The evaluation criteria outlined in the work program, and the criteria correspond to the sections in the call template B1. As I said, it's excellence, which has the highest weighting, impact, and the quality and efficiency of the implementations. We highly recommend that you use the MSCA Staff Exchange Handbook, which has excerpts of the summary evaluation reports and a lot of good advice of what you should think of and what you should put in. The one big advice is make it easy for the evaluators to actually find the information. The Part B1 is already structured, so please make it easy for the evaluators. They don't want to go, they have to read a lot of proposals. They don't want to go searching for the information. As I said, read all the relevant guidance and documents and policies that are available. Use a clear language and explain jargon. Jargon might not be the same across countries. So what is fine for you or within your organization might not be for other people. They might not know what you mean. And also invest time in writing and proofreading. Talk to your network, for proofreading, for advice with the proposal, really make use of this. I'm not going into detail of the specific descriptions of the excellence. You can all have a look at this in the work program and in the slides later. Now, scoring and ranking. The proposals are funded in ranking order per panel. The final ranking is approved by the panel chairs. If there are equal scores, the prioritization is decided by panels based on scores for award criteria. So first excellence, and then it goes into impact, and then you could go further down. The distribution of the indicative budget is proportional to the number of the eligible proposals received in each panel, so it can be adjusted. And the distribution of scores and cutoffs is published on the call page once it has been all the applicants have been informed. And we cannot give out the ranking of individual proposals. So if you write us an email and tell us and ask us where you are, we will tell you, sorry, we can't do this. And this is by order of the European Commission. Now, what if things don't go as planned? So there's a reserve list for proposals that are above threshold but are outside of available funding, and similar to your ranks, we cannot tell you which position you are on the reserve list. Now, proposals on the reserve list can be promoted to the main list until the end of the year following the call deadline. So this should be December 2026 for this call. However, usually if you're having a announcement early in the year, most reserve list promotion should be finalized then by late summer, early autumn. If you absolutely do not agree with your evaluation, you can start a redress, and the process is outlined in your results letter. But be aware that if you get evaluated again, your scores can also decrease during the additional evaluation. It's not only going up. But the good news is resubmission is not restricted, so you can improve your proposal and submit again. Right, nearly there. So the call timeline. So the call has been open since the end of March, and the deadline for submission is the 8th of October this year. And it's at 5 p.m. Brussels time. So be aware, Brussels is 1 hour ahead of us in the UK. So make sure you get the final submission in there at the right time, and you don't get caught out by that 1 hour. You would be expected to be informed of the outcome by March 2026, and roughly signing the grant agreement by June 2026, starting your project September next year. And I cannot say it often enough, submit early, submit often, because the Commission collects the proposals at the deadline. Whatever is submitted by the deadline will be taken forward for evaluation. Right, and there are additional resources. So these are all the links that bring you to the guidance. Something that a lot of people don't know about is the MSCA financial guide. So that explains in a lot of detail how the money works, how the budget works. So that's a really good guide that you should really look at. The work program explains a lot, obviously. Staff Exchanges page on the RIA side. And with this, I think that's done to close. And I saw that my colleague has already been typing away, so I think she's already been answering a lot of questions, but we will try to endeavor more now when I stop sharing. And thank you all again. If you have any questions, drop us an email under the Marie Curie inbox, and we will be able to help you out. Right, thank you very much, and we'll go over to questions.
Right. Thank you, Anja, for a very comprehensive presentation. That was really useful. There were a couple of questions. There were quite a few questions. I've been answering some of them, but there were some that might be worth sharing with the audience. So there was a question about the eligibility criteria. So can you explain eligibility a bit better? What needs to be interdisciplinary? Is it the secondment or is it the entire project? Can you provide some specific examples, please?
I don't have a specific example, but you need to be, it doesn't need to be the whole project, but it's from the partner. So if you're working in molecular biology, you need to send somebody to a partner that is not working in molecular biology. You send somebody physical engineering, for example. Just going back to microscopy, if you know how to do the cells, you need them to send them to somebody who knows how to build a microscope, for example, if that makes sense.
And can I just add that obviously if the secondment is interdisciplinary by nature, the project will be interdisciplinary too. Yeah. So so I hope that sort of answers your question. There was another question. There was a lot of questions about third country participation and whether they can receive funding. So there was a lot of questions about whether Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the US can receive funding from the European Commission. Anja.
So Canada is only associated to Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe. Therefore, it does count as a third country for all of the MSCA, so they cannot receive funding. The same is true for the US and for Australia. They are third countries and cannot receive any funding from the European Commission.
But they can participate.
They can participate
in
yes.
the action.
Yes, they can.
As an associated partner. There is a question. Let me just. There was a question from Patel. As part of the hosting activities, how much of it can encompass research activity and what would be considered realistic?
That depends fully on your project. Obviously, it needs to be contributing to the objectives of your project. And part of your objectives will be research and part of your objectives will be training and development. And your secondments ideally should encompass both of these objectives. So it will, it's really hard to say what is realistic or not. It is tailor-made to everyone's project.
Thank you, Anja. I hope that answered your question. Next question from Jim Wright. Do staff who are going on secondment need to be named individuals, given that they could be new staff PhD imposed towards the end of the implementation period?
To my knowledge, they don't need to be named. If you already have the people in place and can name them, that's fine. But you will already know, for example, that is who you're sending will be the level of a postdoctoral researcher, because that is the level of experience you need, or you will be sending a doctoral researcher because that is the level of experience you need, or you will have X doctoral researchers who will need training, then you just write that. You don't need to name them if you don't know them.
Thank you, Anja. There were a few questions about SME participation, which I've been answering in the chat, but people were asking whether SMEs could participate. My take was as long as they fulfill the European Commission criteria, they could participate. They will need to register in the funding and tender portal like any other beneficiary.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
It's very encouraged actually for SMEs to take part.
Especially for the intersectoral secondment.
Exactly. I just saw a question myself about the success rates, and I'm looking at finding the numbers. So for this year, the success rate for 2024, the success rate has overall been 26%.
Okay.
So that's not bad compared to, for example, the doctoral networks or the postdoctoral fellowships where it's below 20%. So it's a fair chance.
There was a hand up before. I don't know if your question has been answered. Let me see.
The question on the fields in Part A, which are not mandatory, I honestly don't know. I don't know why they're not just removed. Probably they are mandatory in other parts of Horizon Europe. So don't forget, the system needs to cope with all European funding programs. So it's difficult to have one that is tailored for each. So yeah, I think that might be the reason, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think that's the reason. Yeah, I think they use the same application for all the schemes throughout Horizon Europe. So there isn't one size fits all. And unfortunately, the Marie Curie is one of those that it doesn't quite fit into the standard format.
Yeah.
There is another question about named staff again. So there is not need to name the people from the team who will be seconded, and can we just say 2 PhD, 1 postdoc, 1 technician, etc.?
Yes, you can do that. Because as we said before, it might not be clear who will be actually going, but you will already know which level you expect them to be to actually achieve the work that you want to be done during the secondment. But you can, as you said, just say 2 PhD, 1 postdoc, 1 technician. Should be fine.
Does that answer your question, Mohammed? I hope. I don't know if there are any more questions that have been answered.
The clear definition of disciplines that we can refer to, yes, that's the Marie Curie keywords. You will find the link to them in the presentation. That will make it much clearer what is interdisciplinary and what not. As I said, it depends very much on your area, but so far people have always found their corner.
I think there is a good example in the information. Let me just put it here so everyone has access. There we
go. Can the project support salary of the researchers in addition to the secondment, not only the secondment? That was a new question. Yes and no. Not for the not from the unit costs in general. So the researcher allowance is just for anything associated with the secondment, their travel, their accommodation, etc. If you want to top up salaries, you would have to do that by in-kind funding from your own organizations. If you have unspent money of the researcher training network or the management and institutional unit costs at the end, you might be able to use that to top off researcher allowance. But in general, if you start this project, it's not meant for the salary of your researchers going on secondment. and if the money goes to the money goes to the sending organization, and you can have an agreement with hosting organizations to move money across. So as a beneficiary, you can move money from the RTN budget to your associated partners if that is agreed. That is absolutely fine. But you can also, if you're also receiving secondments, you can also say, well, you send me X secondments, I send you X secondments, they're paid for, and this is all balanced. But that's why I said you need to talk about financial arrangements as early as possible.
There is a question about lower middle income country participation, whether they can receive funding.
Yes, they can. There is a list available.
Let me put it in the chat.
Yeah, which these low and middle income countries are, and you should refer to the list of these countries that are eligible. Yeah, there is one thing about the eligibility table. I hope it's been resolved. If you still have any questions, please do drop us an email. I think that's the easiest in that one, because it's sometimes a bit tricky to answer. What else? Raquel, are we missing anything?
There is a question about whether we'll be sharing the recording and the questions afterwards.
Yes, we will. We will be sharing the slides. We will be sharing the readout of the Q&A. So we will include an answer for all the questions. And we will also, hopefully, if technology is with us, upload the recording of this webinar. So you should be fully prepared.
So they will be available in our portal, the UKRO
yes, on
portal.
the events page.
Perfect. There is a question about impact. Do you have a good example of a strong impact section? We received critical feedback on that part in the last round, so I was wondering if there are any guidelines or best practice that I could follow.
Yeah, in that case, I would refer you to the MSCA Staff Exchange Handbook. The link is on the slides. That includes lots of good advice on how to write impact sections, what to include in the sections, and also passages from the summary evaluation reports, the weaknesses and the strengths, and this is where you should be able to get a good idea of what a strong impact section looks like.
There is a hand up from Patel.
Yeah, Patel, if you please, Hitesh Patel, if you please put your question in the Q&A, then we can deal with this.
There is a comment from someone that can't see the chat. Can everyone see the chat and ask their questions?
Yeah, please use the Q&A. The chat is not enabled in this webinar. We're using the Q&A only.
Anja, I was just going to say, we can enable somebody's chat, someone's mic and camera if they do prefer to answer, to ask verbally.
Yeah, they have put the question in the Q&A. Small companies sometimes cannot host. Can they still be eligible if their main role is visiting partner host? Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by visiting partner. So if you could drop us an email and explain this maybe in a bit more detail, then I think this is one of the questions we might need to refer to for later, and we will then also be able to update it for everyone. But if you drop us an email first, that would be helpful, because I'm not 100% sure if I understand it correctly. Yeah. If any more questions for us?
There is a question about small SMEs participating in Horizon Europe. Can they still be eligible if the main role, sorry, I can't read. If the main role is visiting partner host.
Yeah, I think that's the one I just referred to. As I'm not 100% sure what is meant by visiting partner host. So yeah, please drop us an email and we will look at this into a bit more detail. As I said, unfortunately, we're not able to reply to all the questions here straight away. Some need a bit more detail, but we will get to them.
What's the question? I think, Anja, I think there is a question that hasn't been answered, or maybe it has. Apologies if that's the case. If I host, where do I get the money for consumables from? I understand that this money goes to the sending organization and not to me.
Yes, that is something you have to discuss with the sending organization, how the distribution, so consumables are usually covered from the research training network unit costs, and they can be shared. But that is one of these discussions that you have to have early on in your, or should have early on in your consortium building phase. As I said, it might be that you provide the consumables as in kind, and if you send secondis, their hosts might also provide consumables in kind. That is another option, but please, this is something to discuss with the consortium at an early stage, that there are no discussions then later.
I can't see any more questions unless I've missed any.
No, I think we've got them all as well. As I said, if we did miss any, please drop us a line, and we will also anticipate to publish the Q&A as soon as possible together with the slides. So please keep an eye on the events page. And I think Raquel, if you want to. Oh.
I'm just putting the email address in the chat so everyone is got access.
So yeah, I said Raquel just put the email address in, so please drop us a line if you have any further questions. If you now leave us and say, oh, should have asked this, we will endeavor to get back to you as soon as possible. And with this, I think, Raquel, we can close today's webinar. Yep. I hope it was informative for everyone, and yeah, keep an eye on the events page where we will publish everything to do with this webinar. And I hope you all have a lovely week ahead of you, and good luck with your proposal writing. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anja.